Kelly, I'd like to tell you a story.
Okay.
3 little boys were playing in a field. They often went with their parents at harvest time, gather flowers and look at the butterflies. One day they went into the city. They saw its towers and the palace. And they were never allowed to go by themselves. But one day they forgot. And they went to the city. And they walked around the streets. They were sad and hungry. And then they saw a sign that said, House of the Butcher. And they said, Butcher, can you please open for us? We're lost. We want a place to stay. Can we have something to eat? And the door opens and they go in. And the butcher has a knife behind his back. He comes up behind him, kills him, cuts him up, and puts him inside a large salting tub.
You mean like brine?
Yeah, with all the meat. Think of the parents not knowing when their boy's going to return, alone in their houses. 7 years pass. One evening, it's so cold, and the bishop comes in, and he comes into the butcher's place, and he says, "Noble visitor, what do you want?" He says, "It's me, the great bishop." He says, "Oh, here's my best ham. I offer you the best ham because you're the great bishop." He says, "No, I want you to go into that salting tub, open that salting tub up, where you butchered those little boys 7 years ago." And then he opens the salting tub, and the bishop says, "Rise up, children. Go back to your parents." And all of a sudden, the three little boys that were killed 7 years ago come out of that tub. And he punished the butcher, condemning him to walk in shame for the rest of his days with a donkey.
Wow.
Hello, everybody.
Man.
Merry Christmas. That was the gruesome story of that was the origin story, if you will, of Saint Nicholas, somebody that we would know later to be Santa Claus in some countries, Father Christmas in others, Père Noël in others.
He's got so many names.
Kelly, I never knew Saint Nicholas had such a gruesome origin story. Did you know that story?
That was one of the miracles he performed in order to become a saint.
That's right.
Right?
If you want to know more about how to become a saint, look at our back catalog. What do we have?
Saint
Valentine and Mother Teresa also gives the
yeah.
whole step-by-step process of being a saint. So we're not going to do that here.
Yeah.
But I thought we'd little nightmare before Christmas, if you will.
Yeah, I did hear about that, but I heard a little different thing, that he actually saved the boys. I didn't hear about the 7 years in the salting brine, but that the butcher intended to sell them as meat because there was a great famine going on. And so he was going to sell them as, tender cuts of beef or tender cuts of meat.
I think butchers get a bad rap in fables.
They generally do, yes.
Nursery rhymes. I would be, if I was, back in the day in Europe, I would be scared to death of butchers because it seems like they're always the one that wants to cut kids up and eat them.
Don't they even, butchers and witches. Imagine if a butcher married a witch. Like what kind of a...
I think witches probably deserve the bad rap. I think they like the bad rap.
No, because there's the good witch. There's good witches too. And there's good butchers.
If you're a good butcher, email us.
And if you're a bad butcher and you've sent someone to live in Dirt Nap City, also email us. We'd love to meet you.
Yeah. Although if you've ever chopped up a child and put him in, we don't want to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, that's over the line.
Because we're obligated to turn you in.
So this episode is one of our classics. We've done this a couple of times in the past, once by mistake and several times intentionally. It's our collab episode where we both knew who the subject was going to be ahead of time. And so in this case, who is it, Alex?
St. Nicholas of Myra?
Myra, yeah. St. Nicholas of Myra. I think he was born a long, long time ago. As a matter of fact, what I have is March 15th, 270.
I love the March 15th part. Do you really think that they knew that he was born on March 15th, 270?
Well, it was close to St. Patrick's Day. He was a Pisces. I
Yeah.
think, though, more interestingly, he died December 6th, 343. And, today is December 6th. This episode is published one day early. We usually publish on Thursdays, but this time we did it on a Wednesday because what is December 6th?
St. Nicholas Day.
Yeah. It's celebrated every December 6th, and it is part of Advent season. Now, I had to actually look up what Advent is. Are you familiar with that? I mean, everybody's heard the term like Advent calendars, but you know what that's all about?
Where you open a door each day and get a piece of candy,
Little
each
chocolate
day.
or
Yeah.
Well, now they have Advent calendars. They have like Lego Advent calendars and Star Wars Advent calendars, and probably even could do that like for older people. They could use it for their pills. They have those little pill boxes, so they could just have.
Did you just come up with that? That's a great idea.
like instead of a pill box, you have an Advent calendar that you open.
That's a great idea.
Well, other than candy, pills, and Legos, Advent is actually the advent of Jesus of Nazareth. So the church decided that they would have this celebration, and if you think about it, it's the 4 weeks preceding Christmas, and it's really the darkest, coldest time of year, and they wanted to give people a reason to rejoice. And so they were celebrating the fact that, the theoretical birth of Jesus was December 25th, at least, in our calendar. I'm sure it's changed over the years, but that Advent season is that 4 weeks prior to the birth of Jesus, 4 weeks prior to Christmas in the U.S.
Okay.
And other countries.
And I love how, we've talked about other saints, at least 2 other saints on this show. And, the saints are patron saints of different types of things. So it's not that just that St. Nicholas is just the saint that we know for Christmas, but he's also the patron saint of sailors and merchants and archers.
Archers? Okay.
Repentant thieves.
Oh, not every thief, but
once you repent,
thief.
Sure. Once you see the error of your ways, you got a saint. Children, brewers.
Okay.
A lot of people think the brewer part is because of the story that I just told, and
because of the brine.
Keep them in barrels, and pawnbrokers. He's the patron saint of pawnbrokers.
So is that why there's a picture of him up in Pawn Stars? If you ever watched that show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And patron saint of unmarried people and students.
I also had seen somewhere that he was the patron saint of orphans as well.
Probably has to do with the story. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, no, he was orphaned at a young age.
Oh, okay.
His parents were, I believe, Greek Christians or Roman Christians. I'm not sure which, but they died at a young age, and he kind of was out on his own for a long time. But contrary to popular belief, because he's what we've turned in Western culture and maybe Eastern culture as well, he's what we've turned into Santa Claus, right? But he really, according to some of the stuff I read about him, was not really fat. And they know this because they found his remains and did DNA testing on it and stuff like that. But he wasn't fat. He wasn't really jolly, but he was more fiery and defiant. And he was someone that really stood up for church doctrine at a time when there was a lot of persecution of Christians, right? This was shortly after the death of Jesus. This was the 200s and the 300s. So we're not talking about Jesus hadn't been gone for that long. And so he was one of these militant, outspoken Christians that was actually put into prison for his beliefs for several years until he was released by the Emperor Constantine during the Edict of Milan.
What's that?
It was just a decree that you don't put Christians in prison anymore.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Constantine, maybe he was a repentant thief, a repentant Christian persecutor.
So, it was about 1800 years before the full kind of what we know as Santa Claus today became fully realized that we'd even recognize. So it doesn't surprise me that he wasn't
True.
fat, but he did like to give gifts, apparently. Sometimes gifts to children, but I guess back then, if you were an unmarried woman, there was a danger of you going into prostitution because that was the only way you could really support yourself, right?
And you couldn't get married without a dowry.
Right. So he would go in and anonymously kind of drop. I don't know how anonymous it was. We know about it now, but he would drop like a sack of gold coins through the window of different houses of unmarried women, so they could afford their parents could have a dowry, so they could get married. It's a different time, Kelly.
yeah. You see a guy. I mean, he'd probably get shot now if he
This
walked up
story,
and tried to throw a bag of gold into the window of a young unmarried woman. Right?
those stories don't even really make sense. You have to read them a couple times and say, I don't even understand the motivation behind this guy. But I think it all made sense back then. Probably.
Well, that was also something that sort of predicated this idea because he did it anonymously. He didn't want to be known for it, and so this idea of anonymous gift giving sort of came from, or gift giving without expecting something in return, right? So he did this, and when he was caught, because there was a time when he had three women who had been with a wealthy family, or three young ladies who had been in a wealthy family. Their father had lost all of his money.
So they were sisters.
They were sisters, right? They had lost all his money, and the reason that he lost his money was due to plotting and envy of Satan.
The father.
Yeah, the father lost his money due to plotting and envy of Satan. You wouldn't really hear that today. Maybe you invested in Bitcoin while it was still really expensive, but that wouldn't be considered plotting or envy of Satan.
I mean, what do you think that means?
In this version of the story, the man who lost his money was a victim. So the plotting wasn't him plotting; it was somebody else plotting. He got
Right.
taken. It
Like
might
a
have been
Bernie
like an
Madoff
internet
scheme.
scammer, like a pre-internet scammer, calling him
Yeah.
up and telling him that one of his daughters had been kidnapped, and he had to send a gift card right away. I mean, there's
Yeah.
lots of things that could have happened. But
Nigerian prince.
a Nigerian prince who has all this money he wants to transfer. But it turns out that Saint Nicholas was on the up and up. He threw that money in the window. The guy was able to get his daughters married with the money that Saint Nicholas provided. But then, after his two daughters had been married, the third daughter, Saint Nicholas throws the money in. The father had waited up late, saw him, and thanked him. And Saint Nicholas said, "No, don't tell anyone. Keep it on the DL." Now here's the question: is how did we find out about it then?
That's what I was going to say. I mean, sometimes people give anonymously, but they don't care if people find out, But I don't know if that was the case this time. He must have been caught red-handed once.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's not really a miracle though, is it?
No, that wasn't a miracle.
This is just being a good guy.
I did have another miracle that he performed though. Did you read about the wheat on the ship?
No.
So there was a famine going on in Myra from 311 to 312, and a ship came into town, and they were delivering wheat to the emperor in Constantinople. Now, Nicholas actually because of the famine, he asked the sailors to unload the ship and donate the money, or donate the food to the town to help save the people from the famine in Myra. Well, the sailors were not into it. They were like, no, we have to deliver this to the emperor or else we're going to be in trouble. He said, do it anyway. And they listened to him. That's what always amazes me, is that they actually listened to him, unloaded the wheat, and then when they set sail back to Constantinople to take the wheat that was left to the emperor, they found that none of the wheat was gone, even though they had delivered enough to Myra to feed the people of the town. It's kind of a loaves and fishes kind of thing.
Okay.
It's interesting that some of these miracles sort of mimic miracles that Jesus did, right?
Yeah. That might be another reason he's the patron saint of brewers. So the wheat.
Oh yeah. So, and sailors, right? Didn't you say he was patron saint of sailors?
Yeah. And they used to celebrate, like sailors used to pay tribute to him when they'd go into harbor. I think this was not way back then, but several centuries later, whenever they would go into a harbor, they would, at Christmas, they would buy stuff for kids, and the kids would leave out their shoes, and the sailors would put candy and whatever gifts back then. That's the thing, gift giving back then,
It was pretty simple.
maybe a couple of pieces of candy, maybe a nut.
Yeah.
I mean,
never 2 nuts though. You never gave 2 nuts. That was considered gauche.
And these kids would just go crazy. They'd check their shoes and there'd be candy in their shoes, and they'd go try that today. Right. Try putting some candy in your kid's shoes and calling it a Christmas.
I think people were a lot more grateful for little things back then, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, these days Santa's got to bring like the latest version of Xbox and PlayStation.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
This one has a lightning connector. I wanted USB-C. Come on, Dad.
Yeah.
Come on, Santa.
Yeah. There was no Boxing Day probably back then where you'd return all your nuts and candies.
Right.
And I think the candy was homemade too. So it wasn't even.
Yeah, it wasn't store-bought candy. That didn't happen until the like prairie days.
I think the sailors would. They'd go in and buy things at the market, and then the kids' shoes would be out. And that was every December 6th, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So, but then that got kind of transformed into being St. Nicholas is the one that brings the gifts. But he doesn't do that in every country.
Right.
There's kind of 3 types of people. If you look at Christmases, there's around the world, there's kind of 3 categories of gift givers. Did you know this? The 3 categories
I think
are?
So. I think there's sort of the jolly, kind gift giver, and then isn't there more of a authoritarian, like sort of scare the children kind of gift giver?
Oh, well, we can talk about that too. I was going to say that the gift givers are there's the bearded men.
Oh, yeah.
This would be like the Father Frost and Grandfather Frost and Father Christmas and all this kind of stuff.
The bearded women.
Then there's the actual babies. Like there's some cultures where the baby
Jesus,
kind of like the baby Jesus, but it never is exactly the baby Jesus.
More of a cherub, like a little cherubic angel kind of thing.
Exactly. So the baby is the one that gives the gifts. And then there's other cultures, mostly like Latin American countries, where it's the 3 wise men or the 3 kings or the 3 magic men or whatever they're called in those countries. And they're the ones that bring the gifts because they actually did bring the gifts.
Yeah.
And it kind of varies by what country you're brought up. In some countries, it's kind of morphed into, well, we had the 3 kings, but Santa Claus is so pervasive in culture that we also brought him in. But it's really interesting. And a little bit later, I'm going to tell you about the Icelandic tradition.
Okay.
And so save some time here so I can tell you about the Yule lads, because I think you're going to like
the
this.
Yule lads. Okay. Well, yeah. So, part of the thing was they wanted children to behave, right? And so it was a way to get children to act more kindly, more just better. And they did it because they figured if kids were scared a little bit, because I don't think it was always just a lump of coal. It was like if in the US, if you were bad, you'd get a lump of coal. Well, you tell a kid that today, again, hey, if you're bad, I'm going to get you an Android phone. Well, no, not that.
Did you ever use the threat of Santa not coming?
Santa's watching. Better watch out. You better not pout. You better not cry. I'm telling you why.
Did you ever use that threat?
Yeah, but Jody figured it out pretty quickly. That's my wife.
Yeah, that's only funny if they've been known.
Right. Yeah, we did a little bit. I mean, it was, there was an early time when the kids were pretty young that we still actually have kind of on Christmas morning, we'll have things So my wife's parents actually have a tradition of the elves, and the elves bring like pajamas and socks and underwear. And so that's, you get something from the elves, and then we'll have a stocking, and then there's usually like one or two gifts from that's just left on the, under the tree from the night before. So Santa still comes to our house very briefly, and I guess he brings the elves because there's usually a new pair of socks or underwear there. And honestly, the thing though is the kids didn't really care about that, and so if you told them they weren't going to get new socks, they would be like, "So,
Yeah, right.
who cares?"
What's the deal with the Elf on the Shelf? That came kind of after me, and
Yeah.
is that the same idea that it's supposed to? Somebody's watching you. You better be good.
Yeah, I think that is. I think it's as somebody's watching you, and it's like a physical representation of that thing, but it's a non-threatening one, right? It's this tiny little cute elf. I mean, he looks a little bit like Chucky doll, honestly. In some cases, I'm kind of scared of him. But I also think the Elf on the Shelf was one of those things. Like if you ever go into a Trader Joe's, I don't know if you know this, but every Trader Joe's has a mascot. They'll have a cow or a fish or a elk or a rooster, something like that. And it'll be a little stuffed toy. And if the kid finds the mascot, it's hidden somewhere in the store, they get a lollipop or something. Because Tate used to love to go to Trader Joe's, and he loved to go to one that wasn't the one we usually go to because it had a different mascot in a different place. And he would go find it and then get that little thing. I think the Elf on the Shelf is a similar vibe. You hide it somewhere where it can watch you, but it's not obvious. And then if the kid sees it there, he thinks that the elf's being sneaky.
But the subtext is you're being watched. You better be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how the song goes, right?
The Santa Claus song?
You better watch out. You better not cry. I mean, you better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus, he sees you when he's sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. I mean, this is all pretty deep stuff.
Yeah. He's this all-knowing bearded person who knows what you're up to. And you better turn it around.
So I think that, for a long time, from like the 1200s to the 1500s, the celebration of St. Nicholas Day on December 6th was kind of a big deal. It was a little more of a thing than Christmas. It wasn't, it was moved later. But did you know that the way that Santa came to look like he does today with the white beard and the red hat it had to do with European deities or early Roman and Greek mythology like Saturn and Zeus. And in Norse, in Norway, they have one called Odin, Norse Odin. And these guys all had white beards. I think they were often kind of muscular. They weren't really chubby, and they were usually in their like late 30s, early 40s. These are the kind of guys that are in Viagra ads, right? That they don't need Viagra, but they're just in the ads because they look good and they have the white beard. But that was when that look kind of changed because St. Nicholas, again, didn't really look like that, but they also had the magical powers, right? I mean, if you think about Zeus or Saturn, those guys had magical powers like flight. And then all of a sudden Santa Claus can fly, and he can go up the chimney even though he doesn't fit, right? He's kind of like an octopus squeezing through it, or a rat.
So in some countries Santa Claus can fly?
In our country he can fly.
No. He can't fly.
Behind his sleigh can fly.
The reindeers can fly.
Yeah, but he's controlling the whole thing.
Yeah, but if the reindeer stopped flying, he would crash to the ground.
But he's the one.
And if he could fly, he wouldn't need the reindeers.
Placing a finger aside of his nose and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose.
Oh, yeah.
How does he do that, huh?
He jumps.
Santa Claus can't jump. So ultimately, though...
just because he's white?
Yeah. He's not white in all countries. So he... turned into a little bit more of the Protestant version of Santa. And I guess maybe that was partly through Northern Europe, and that became in the US and countries around the world. Well, ultimately, like you said, the whole idea of baby Jesus or a baby delivering gifts is a little ridiculous. It can't carry very many gifts, right? I mean, it's too small to really do that. And
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
need a
Right.
man. You need a big, strong, strapping man like Santa who was modeled after Zeus to carry those gifts and bring them in. But then you also need someone they're a little bit scared of, because nobody's scared of a baby, right? And so if you want somebody that's going to potentially have consequences for being naughty, you need a man like Santa Claus.
I'm guessing this is what after the gifts stopped being just little candies and nuts.
Yeah, this is when we got into like, carved horses, or
Sure.
those string, a ball on a string, like that 1800s kind of gifts.
Okay.
Now, like you said earlier, there were different names for Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus around the world. A lot of them were kind of scary and threatening, but did you know that he had a sidekick named Rue Claus in
Oh
Germany?
man. Are you sure you want to get into the sidekicks? Because if we get into the sidekicks, we have to talk about Black Pete.
Oh, okay. I don't know who Black Pete is. Who is Black Pete?
So, from my understanding, the way it really got into the U.S. was through New Amsterdam, where all the Dutch came.
Yeah.
And the Dutch, in their Christmas, Sinterklaas comes.
Sinterklaas. Okay.
Sinterklaas, and he was this old. They give gifts on the 5th, the night of the 5th, December 5th, and the morning of the 6th,
the eve of Saint Nicholas Day.
And he was this old, serious man with white hair and a beard, and he wore a red cape, and he didn't have reindeer, but he rode a white horse over the rooftops at night, delivering gifts through the chimney. So a lot of the kind of beginnings of Santa Claus. He carried a big red book with all the names of the records of the good and bad kids, and
Okay.
kids would leave the shoe by the fireplace and maybe a carrot for the horse.
Right.
And a bowl of water. Some would even leave. So when a kid was done with the pacifier, when the parents say no more pacifier, they would leave the pacifier for Sinterklaas, and he would take it, and you'd never use it again. I kind of like that.
So then he would give it to another baby, maybe?
No, you're just done with it. That's when you reach that milestone in your life.
Yeah. Okay.
But he would leave treats like marzipan and oranges and things in your. but Sinterklaas had a sidekick, and today that sidekick is kind of being phased out.
Okay.
And this sidekick was Black Pete. I guess the lore was that it was an African friend of his, but Black Pete would go around, kind of hitting kids with sticks, and he was the others. He would leave the coal, or he would or take their shoes, or leave something bad.
The potentially racist part of it might have been strictly Danish, but or Dutch? Was it Dutch or Danish?
Dutch.
Okay.
Yeah, Dutch.
That the fact that they made it an African might be strictly related to the Dutch. But
right.
There were bad sidekicks, in other countries. There was Rue Klaus, which was Rough Nicholas. There was Ashen Klaus, which was Ashy Nicholas.
He's my favorite.
There was you haven't heard of Pelsnickel, which was Furry Nicholas. Peltsnickel. Like think of a pelt, I guess.
So would this be like Wario or Waluigi?
Yeah,
we know, just like a bizarro version, like a bad version of these guys.
I think so. And the thing is, it was kind of a good cop, bad cop thing, right? They wanted these other characters around to be able to kidnap children or whip children or beat them with a stick, or take away their pacifier, or whatever bad things needed to be done. It was sort of a carrot and stick approach, right? So Santa Claus was the carrot, and these other guys were the stick.
I guess so. And of course, the big one,
Krampus.
Krampus was not even a real person. Like, he would just these like goat like. He'd have hooves.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. He was like a
hairy,
Christmas devil,
and he would have like the horns of a goat. I feel like I saw Krampus in early heavy metal records when I was a kid.
Oh, definitely on Who's Jack Black's band? Tenacious D. like he'd
Sure.
be on the cover
I
of a
think,
Tenacious D album.
or Jethro Tull.
Right, right.
He would carry chains and he would whip kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Krampus.
If you've been bad, he would whip you, right? And you'd get him instead of Santa
Well,
Claus.
so here's my theory about that, and that is that the gifts weren't that great, right? So the motivation for, like you say, marzipan or some fudge or
An orange.
that's not that enticing. Okay, that's nice. Yeah, I'd like an orange, but so therefore they had to have really much worse a much worse downside to motivate kids, right? Okay, so you can either get an orange or you can get a beating. Which would you rather have? So I'm gonna, so the kid's gonna be better. If it was just like get an orange or don't get an orange, the kids wouldn't care, right? But if it's orange or beating, then the apple sounds pretty good or the orange sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Now the sidekicks weren't always bad. Sometimes they were just like sidekicks. Like in Italy, you'd have Babbo Natale.
Babbo Natale.
But the Befana, which is like a witch, but she wasn't a bad witch, like you said. She rides a broomstick and brings candy to people. Or Santa Lucia in other parts of Italy, where she would bring, she'd ride a donkey. She was an old blind lady that would ride a donkey to town and give candy to kids.
But before we go too far off of the original Saint Nicholas, into Santa Claus territory.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to know if you know how he became the Bishop of Myra.
No, please tell.
Okay. Well, it was first of all, he was very religious. He was a very devout Christian from a young age. He was an orphan, and when he was younger, maybe in his teens or 20s, he went and visited the Holy Land. Well, he came back from the Holy Land, and it turns out that the original Bishop of Myra was his uncle. But while he was gone, his uncle died. And so there was no Bishop of Myra. So the other church elders and the priests in the city decided that the first priest to enter the church on a certain morning would be made bishop. Nicholas was there. He came in to pray, and they made him the new bishop.
It seems like
he didn't earn it at all. He just
scattershot way to select the holy man.
The next one to walk in is the new bishop, and that was him.
I had heard that story as well, and I don't know what to believe.
Man. Oh, it's got to be true. I mean, you heard it on Dirt Nap City.
It's just funny that if that was true, you'd think you wouldn't want to tell anybody that that's how you became bishop. You want to keep that a secret.
Well, he wanted to keep the gift giving a secret too. They couldn't keep a secret back then.
That's true.
People were just blah blah blah, blabber blabber blabber. So, did you read it all about the Council of Nicaea?
Tell me.
So, I'm not sure what the Council of Nicaea was. I'll be honest. It was Nicaea. Nicaea. But apparently it was a big deal. It happened in 325. And Nicholas, he, as I said in the beginning, he apparently was a bit of a firebrand. He got that butcher, and the butcher probably had a knife, but Nicholas just disarmed him and put him to shame when he killed those kids. He brought the kids back to life. He apparently at one point even stopped a man on a horse and chastised him. But at the Council of Nicaea, he was there, and there were two. This must have been a religious thing. It must have been a church thing. Maybe it was like a bishop's conference or something. They had two different sort of philosophies or philosophical or trains of thought, or I don't know what you call them, but maybe they were even sort of like denominations. There was Arianism and Trinitarianism. So there was actually a guy named Arius, and he was promoting Arianism, of course. Now, I don't know if you think about Arianism when it comes to Germans and Nazis and stuff like that. It's sort of a master race thing. I don't know if that's what it was all about. But it turns out that Nicholas was a big, big devotee of Trinitarianism. And you can guess what that's about, right?
The Trinity, the Holy Trinity, right?
Yeah, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So Nicholas apparently lost his temper during the Council of Nicaea. Now he was way ahead of his time. He walked up on stage and slapped an Arian in front of everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, Will Smith style.
That's probably frowned upon.
Yeah, so apparently he actually was chastised by Constantine for doing that, and Constantine actually revoked his mitre and palladium, or pallium, Pallium. I don't know what a mitre or a pallium are. Do you?
No.
It's probably that thing they're holding, like the cross and the...
But this is our good Saint Nicholas going around slapping people.
Yeah, but it was not because he was mean. It's because he believed so strongly in Trinitarianism versus Arianism.
Use your words.
Well, so basically, later versions say that it was actually Arius himself. It wasn't just a certain Arian that he did, and there's a debate whether he punched him or slapped him with an open hand. So they actually imprisoned Nicholas for doing this in other versions of the story. And he actually saw a vision of Christ and the Virgin Mary while he was in prison. And he said that he was in prison because he loved them so much. And then they broke his chains and restored his vestments.
Wow. So that was a miracle. Who performed that miracle?
No. Jesus and Christ and Mary did that.
But that must have been a miracle.
It was a miracle, yeah. I mean, he was there for it. I don't know if that counted as one of his miracles or not, but yeah, maybe so, because they busted him out of jail.
Getting himself out of jail. He
didn't get himself out. It was Jesus and Mary that did it, apparently.
Sure, that's probably not what the jailers thought, though.
So there is actually a painting, a famous painting in the Basilica San Nicola in Bari, Italy, of Nicholas slapping Arius.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they actually celebrate that on Easter.
Open-handed?
Huh?
Was it open-handed?
There was some debate about whether he punched him, but I'm going to say open-handed.
No, in the painting. Oh,
I don't know. I've never seen the painting.
I thought you said it was famous.
Well, it's not famous enough to have reached me. I know about it, but you know what? If I ever am in Nicola, the Basilica de San Nicola in Bari, Italy, I'm going to go see it. That's where he's buried. That's where his remains are.
I was in Bari actually about 6 years ago. I was in Bari.
Did you see his remains?
Didn't know about it.
If you're Italian and you can drive over to Bari and send us a snap of that, a picture of that slapping painting, we'd love to see it. If they allow pictures, a lot of times they won't allow pictures. No flash photography. Just use available light.
Or just tell us.
Yeah. Should we Google it here? Let's just see real quick.
I mean, do you hope it was an open slap?
I'm about to find out. Nicholas.
What do you hope it was? A punch?
No, open slap. Because I feel like that would make Will Smith so much more relevant.
I'm not even sure if that was a slap. Call it a slap.
Here it is. Oh man, there's a lot of these. Good. Oh, look at this. Hold on. I'm gonna have to send this to you. Yeah. No, it is a full-on slap. Yeah. 100%.
It's not a photograph, Kelly. I mean,
it's a painting. Do you see it?
I know, but they had to make it as dramatic as they could.
Are you looking at it?
What are you?
Hold on.
Where are you sending this?
I'm sending it right now. It's a very cool. I mean, they look like a couple of chess pieces.
Oh man.
So see? St. Nicholas giving Arius the what for at the Council of Nicaea.
It almost looks like an AI kind of. If I had typed in two priests arguing, or
right,
it almost seems like there's too many hands in that picture too.
Look,
there's hands everywhere.
No, there's only 4 hands. look
I
at
know I had to count them.
look at the way that Arius. Look at the black sort of motion coming
Yeah.
off of his head,
Yeah.
like the
So
power.
what do you want people to Google so they can see this? What would they type in?
I just typed in Nicholas slapping Arius painting.
Okay. So do that, everybody.
Yeah.
While you're,
Google.
If you're driving, pull over.
or just ask Siri or whoever. It's a cool painting.
He's kind of like,
it looks like he's kind of pushing him away, but
Yeah.
but the reason I think it was more of a slap is because of that black that sort of motion blur behind his head. Like it looks like he didn't slap him across the face. He kind of like slapped him into the face.
but I wouldn't show this to your kids. I wouldn't say, "Hey kids, would you want to see Santa Claus in a fight?"
Right. This was at the mall right before you went up and met him. That's why he was in such a bad mood.
This is a dad asking if we could cut in line.
Right. No, you can't. Well, so
Yeah, he doesn't really look like Santa Claus, like you say. He's a little thinner, but he's got enormous hands.
well, again, he's modeled after Zeus, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
if he could shoot a lightning bolt.
Seriously.
And look at those hats. How are those hats not falling off? How are those hats still on their heads? That's what I want to know.
Interesting too. I don't know if there's any symbolism in the white cross versus the black cross.
Ah.
The good guys got the white cross.
Well, again,
and the bad guys
it's
got the black cross.
Arianism versus Trinitarianism, right?
Right, but we don't know what Arianism exactly promotes.
Yeah. Well,
But he's not blonde hair, blue eye, like you're saying. The Aryan here in question is the guy with the black beard.
true. He
So he isn't what we'd know as an
well,
Aryan.
I don't think the Germans had it quite right.
Mm.
But
Well, anyways, it's an outstanding painting. Who's the artist? Just so we can give credit.
oh
here?
yeah, we need to maybe we should put that in the in the description. It just says the scene of Nicholas slapping Arius is celebrated in Eastern Orthodox icons, and episodes of Saint Nicholas at Nicaea are shown in a series of paintings from the 1660s in the Basilica de Nicola in Bari, Italy. So
Okay.
so this was a series. There's more. There's like there's this one, and then there's even more of them.
So it's like a series of him beating this guy down.
Right. If you like this one, go on to the next one. It's like a children's book. You little bell rings and you turn the page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's another one here that is a little calmer looking.
Is that going to those flip movies where you
Right. St. Nicholas in a bar fight. So all of that said, he did die, and there is a bit of debate about where his remains are, but I believe that most of them are in Bari, Italy. That's what is said. They're in that church where the paintings are.
Man, I really wish I would have known about this when I went to Bari.
Yeah. I mean, are you ever going back to Bari, Italy? Probably not.
Unlikely.
Yeah, pretty unlikely. Well, it is said that around 200 years after his death, the Roman Emperor Theodosius II ordered the building of the Church of St. Nicholas in Myra. So there's actually a Church of St. Nicholas in Myra that was ordered by the Roman Emperor. This all took place during Roman times.
And Myra is like near Turkey, right?
Yes. I believe that was I think actually it was part of Turkey when he was born.
Okay, it was all the Roman Empire, like you said.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, that was. So ultimately, I think the thing he was remembered for was the gift giving, like you said, in sort of the good way, not the bad way. But Christmas in America back in the day was different than it is today, right? Of course, everybody thinks it's too commercial today, and they're probably right about that. But what really changed this idea and brought the modern version of Santa Claus to light was Washington Irving's book about New York, where the kids were visited by a pipe smoking Saint Nicholas soaring over the rooftops and bringing gifts to the good children's, the good children, and switches to the bad ones.
Wow. So even then, they were getting beatings.
This was in the early 1800s.
right, like 1820.
I don't know if he was actually giving them switches, if he was beating the bad children with switches, or if he was giving them to bully other kids. You know, it was like maybe those kids asked for a switch.
Nintendo Switch.
Santa, please bring me a switch so I can beat up little Alex.
So you're saying, I thought that was a phrase, like giving him the switch was like beating him, but you're saying just like,
Well,
it's just like a symbol of you better be like a warning.
I mean, he would have to come down the chimney, eat the cookie, wake the kid up, beat the kid, and then leave without being caught, right? I mean,
yeah, what's the problem with that?
seems, maybe he left the switch for the parents to beat the children. I don't know, but
seems time consuming and efficient. Maybe if he wouldn't eat, maybe you shouldn't. Yeah, I think you shouldn't take the food of a naughty child.
Oh, really? But how does that punish the naughty child? Because then the naughty child just gets the cookies and whatever.
I don't know. It's just kind of disingenuous to take someone's food and then beat them. I don't like that.
Well, so that was all in a book called Knickerbocker's History of New York. And it was sort of one of the first modern takes on Santa Claus. And then in 1821, there was an illustrated poem called The Children's Friend. It was anonymous. And it went much further, associating Santa Claus with Christmas. And he really looked like Santa in this one. It took sort of the original idea of St. Nicholas and took away all of his religious garb, right? So no more white cross, no more hat like that. And they put him in furs to make him look more German. And then he kind of became the gift-giving Santa.
Now, was that 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, or did that come even later?
That was called The Children's Friend, that story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know, actually, so that was in 1821. Then in 1822, just a year later, maybe inspired by The Children's Friend, there was a story called A Visit from St. Nicholas, and that became The Night Before Christmas. Right. It was basically...
What year was that?
1822.
Okay.
And it was written by Clement Clarke, and it was for his children, and he actually wrote it for them. He had no idea it was going to become sort of a phenomenon. It was published anonymously. And that description is when we first heard about his sleigh, his 8 reindeer, the plump, jolly old elf, all the stuff. It kind of went viral back in those days. And that was an unusual thing for to happen because, it was all newspapers and, there wasn't a way for things to go viral very easily. But it became that first modern notion of Santa in 1822.
And then didn't Coca-Cola take that and run with it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That and polar bears.
So, no, I think a Coca-Cola ad had the full drawn out version of taken from that poem that's kind of been the gold standard to what we know now.
Yeah. Become the standard look for Santa for all the years since then.
Yeah. So in looking at the different types of gift givers, I told you that there's kind of the old man and the kids and even Christkindl was what they call it in Central Europe. They call it Christkindl, which means Christ child, but morphed into Kris Kringle later on. So a lot of these things kind of get
Americanized,
brought together. No, they just get brought together, like 2 or 3 different figures kind of become one. Yeah. And but some places I just love the names of these things. Like in Uzbekistan, they call him Snow Grandfather.
Okay.
Or in Eastern Slavic countries, they call him Grandpa Frost.
Yeah.
In Wales, they have Chimney John.
Chimney John.
I love Chimney John. In Russia, it's Lord of the Cold.
Lord of the Cold. That's a pretty big name.
In Armenia, they call him Winter Grandfather.
Okay.
But I think my favorite one of all of these is what they got going on in Iceland.
Okay. What are they-
Iceland has a whole folklore with people that we've never heard of.
All right.
And it's this whole thing where different characters and monsters come to town during Christmas. And these stories, like we were talking about earlier, are all designed to make kids behave. The first character is called Grilla,
Okay.
and she's like an ogress or a female ogre, and she's got an
Ogress.
appetite for the flesh of mischievous children.
Who doesn't?
She cooks these kids in a large pot. She has a husband, but I think his name's Lepa Louie, but he just is lazy and stays home.
Okay.
Then they have a cat. The cat is called the Yule Cat, and the cat is this gigantic cat, like a monster, and he eats people who haven't received any new clothes before Christmas Eve. So if you're in Iceland, it was an incentive for the workers to finish the wool, like to finish clothes before Christmas happened, so that people had things to buy. But even people in Iceland today, they get stressed out about having to buy a new outfit before Christmas Eve because the legend is that the Yule Cat will eat you if you don't buy new clothes before Christmas Eve.
Wow.
For yourself, not even as a gift, just for yourself.
It's cold there, and so they need clothes to stay warm. And then also that probably helps the economy, right? That's why Iceland has such a strong economy.
It's just such an elaborate story. But here is my favorite part of this legend is that Grilla and Lepa Louie have 13 kids, and these kids are known as the Yule Lads. And the Yule Lads sound, I know it's kind of sounds like a
boy band.
Sure, or a Irish hip hop group or something, but these 13 kids are pranksters who mostly steal and harass, and they visit you one by one starting on December 12th. So there's 13 of them. It goes from the 12th
instead
to
of the
25th.
12 days of Christmas, you got the 13 Yule Lads.
Sure. And they leave also small gifts in your shoes. So you put your shoes out every night and they'll leave a gift. But if you're bad, they leave a rotten potato.
Are they all boys, or does it say?
Yeah, they're all boys.
Okay.
And each one of them has a distinctive thing that they prank you about. And I'm going to describe each one of them.
Oh man.
Starting with December 12th. Now the actual names are Icelandic and very hard to pronounce. So I'll just give you the English translation.
Okay.
So on December 12th, you're visited by the sheepcoat clod.
Okay.
And he harasses sheep.
Yep.
So he's only a prankster, but he just comes in and he harasses the sheep, and he has peg legs. So he's easy to catch. He doesn't run very fast, but if you're not careful, he's going to harass your sheep.
But do they call him McGregor the sheep harasser? No.
The December 13th is the gully gawk.
Okay.
You know what a gully is?
Yeah, it's like a valley, like kind of where
sure,
water
like
runs down.
in a river. Sure. He hides in gullies and steals milk.
Okay.
Some legend is that he comes right into the cow and sucks right off the udder, the milk right off the udder.
And there's a lot of cows in gullies in Iceland, I guess?
Yeah, it's all sheep and cows and gullies. Then December 14th, you might be visited by Stubby.
Okay.
Stubby is abnormally short, and he steals pans and licks the crust off of the pans, like from your leftover. So I don't know if these are pranks. These are kind of low-grade pranks.
Yeah.
You have to make sure you wash your pans.
Or you'll get licked by Stubby.
Speaking of licking, December 15th comes the spoon licker.
Oh.
And he steals and licks the spoons. But he's extremely thin due to malnutrition, because that's the only
thing he eats
is just licking people's spoons.
Okay.
So if you're not washing your dishes, this could be hard for you. But if you're washing your dishes, you're fine with these December 14th and 15th. December 16th, though, comes the pot scraper. And he steals leftovers and he licks the pots.
This all has to do with sort of cleaning up after Christmas dinner, right? I mean, it seems like does he steal it and lick it and leave it, or does he steal it and lick it and take it? Because if he leaves it, then you could just leave all your dishes out and these guys would take care of it.
They steal. All of these guys steal stuff.
Oh, so it's gone. Like your spoon is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then, of course, on the same theme, December 17th is bowl licker. So you got the spoon licker, pot scraper, and the bowl licker.
Do you have the Icelandic name for bowl licker?
No, not in front of me.
Okay.
But the bowl licker hides under your bed and he waits for you to put down your bowl, and then he steals your bowl.
Oh man, you better hope that's not a chamber pot.
So now we're off of the pots and pans kitchen stuff, and now we go to December 18th comes Door Slammer.
Just getting worse.
Door Slammer he does exactly what you think he does.
Yeah.
He just wakes people up by slamming doors.
Yeah, I do that.
I feel like I've lived with a few of these people in college.
Yeah.
These Yule lads.
You're missing some spoons.
December 19th comes, do you know what skyr is? Skyr is like a kind of yogurt they have in Iceland.
Okay.
So that's important to know because December 19th is Skyr Gobbler. And he just loves yogurt.
Okay.
And he just we'll steal your yogurt.
Yeah.
And December 20th comes Sausage Swiper.
All right.
Sausage Swiper. He hides in the rafters and he steals any sausages that are being smoked.
Oh, yeah, because they hang up there in the rafters.
Yeah. Now, December 21st, it gets a little weird. That's
when it gets weird?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when Window Peeper comes.
Oh, okay.
So Merry Christmas for that. December 22nd comes Doorway Sniffer.
Wow.
Doorway Sniffer has an abnormally large nose, and he just comes around looking for bread.
All right.
He sniffs the doorway, and if he smells bread, he's coming in and taking it. December 23rd is Meat Hook. He uses a hook to steal your meat. And then finally, on December 24th is the Candle Stealer.
Wow.
Where he follows children. I guess kids have candles Christmas Eve, and he follows kids around and he steals their candles. And actually, in 1746, parents in Iceland were banned from tormenting their kids with the stories of these Yule lads.
Yeah.
Because I guess it was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, 13 of them. I mean, that's a lot. 13.
You're visited every night. But I think as long as you keep a tidy house and you just keep your stuff together, I think these guys aren't going to bother you.
You can avoid them.
Man,
yeah, there's ways. They're like having rats or roaches. You just gotta keep things clean.
But again, in reading all of these different worldwide traditions, it seems like the one thing that, whether or not you use the Three Kings or Sinterklaas or any of these, it seems like the one thing that's constant is trying to get kids to behave and bribing them to behave, basically.
And I think the idea of giving gifts anonymously or giving gifts without expectation of a gift in return.
Maybe.
I mean, that was the original thing with St. Nicholas and the dowry that he gave, right? He was giving something that he didn't have any motivation other than to help the people.
I wonder when it became fashionable to give gifts to adults, because everything I've been reading is just about kids and to correct their behavior, but that adults didn't give presents to other adults for a while.
The idea that he was giving the money for the dowry, he was kind of giving money to the father to pay the dowry because the daughters didn't pay the dowry. So maybe that was a early idea of it. There's the gift of the Magi, right? Which is kind of the story of someone giving a gift and sacrificing something. Then the gift they receive was also a sacrifice, but they sacrificed the thing that the gift was for.
Right.
So that might have something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, the idea of Santa Claus, I think, was more about giving gifts to children, but the idea of St. Nicholas was maybe more about giving in general and standing up for what you believe in and slapping somebody if you have to.
Yeah. And it's amazing how this thing is just keeps on evolving.
And the idea that Santa Claus could fly with going up the chimney by touching his nose and on the sleigh. So do you happen to know the circumference of the earth in miles?
No.
24,901 miles around the equator. Right.
Okay.
And so Santa goes around the world in really basically, well, I guess it could be 24 hours if he's going the same direction or if he's following the sunset, so that basically the sun's going down because he only comes at night, right? He'd have to basically go Mach 1, no, Mach 1.5, which Mach 1 is 1,195 kilometers per hour or 717 miles per hour. That's the speed of sound. In order to go around the Earth in one night, he has to fly at 1,038 miles per hour. So instead of 717, which is Mach 1, he's going 1.5 Machs, and he's getting around the Earth in 24 hours on his sleigh. Now, that doesn't account for stopping to eat cookies, beating children, delivering the gifts, or any of that.
But it also doesn't account for the places where Santa Claus isn't a thing and where bad kids take care of it. Like if the sidekick takes care of that, that can cut off. What percent of kids do you think are bad?
Oh, 80.
Or naughty?
Not 90.
Wow. Well, then it's really not much of a task at all.
Well, unless I guess if he's got if you got a sidekick to beat the children, then he's okay. But you just think about how fast he goes. Here's my question though: is you would at that speed actually hear a sonic boom? Now, have you ever heard a sonic boom on Christmas Eve?
I don't think so.
No. So there's something going on there. I don't know if he has some sort of stealth technology or he's able to travel that fast silently.
But maybe you're onto something. Maybe more kids are naughty than we think, and he only has to go to like 1,000 houses.
Oh, yeah, that's true. 1,000 around the world.
Maybe it's just that you and I have really good kids, and we never knew that it's like maybe our kids are in the top 0.1%.
Well,
and he's only visiting. Now, maybe the real task is the sidekicks that have to go around beating kids all night long.
Yeah, and luckily there's lots of those. Each country has their own, so all they have to do is cover. And Iceland's not a very big country, so they can take care of it quickly.
Yeah.
So
there's only one doorway sniffer, though. And he has to travel to all the houses in Iceland in one night on December 22nd.
And then think of how many doorways are in the house, right? I mean, there's multiple doorways in each house. At least the front
and the
and back
spoon
door.
licker, I guess he just gets all his food he eats once a year
right,
just by licking spoons.
Hey, if you think about it, an entire country worth of spoons, there's probably enough to sustain you for a year.
Wow. Well, they say he's abnormally thin.
Well, with Santa going, around the world, let's just assume those 1,000 people, those 1,000 kids, good kids, are spread out, in different countries. So he's still got to make it around most of the world. Do you know the world record before Santa, not including Santa, to get around the globe in an airplane was 46 hours and 40 minutes.
What year was that?
That was in 2019.
Oh, cool.
They took off from the Kennedy Space Center, and they had to stop for fuel 3 times in Chile, Kazakhstan, and Mauritius. I don't know where that is.
Mauritius. It's an island, yeah. So it still took how many hours?
46 hours to fly around the world.
As fast as they could.
Yep. They went straight north, up over the North Pole and down over the South Pole in a Gulfstream jet that just goes almost the speed of sound.
Wow.
So
that's probably the short way around too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It still took 2 full days to go around the Earth.
Yeah. 46 hours. I mean, it's pretty amazing that he does it in one day, but he is magical. Now,
absolutely.
You mentioned a bunch of different names for Santa. Did you happen to see the Finnish Santa, the Santa from Finland?
No, maybe.
It's
what's his name?
Joulupukki. 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 Now, in a lot of those Scandinavian countries, my brother-in-law is Norwegian. Jul is kind of Christmas, Joul, and so Joulupukki literally means the Yule goat.
I don't know why in so many countries it's a goat.
Yeah, I mean, well, goats are pretty amazing. They'll eat just about anything. They are, they give milk. You can use their fur.
But sometimes it's like, it's like a elf that turns into a goat, or a gnome that turns into a goat.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That's the cloven hoof kind of devil kind of thing too. That goats are always associated with occult and mystic kind of stuff. But the one person that we haven't really talked about that probably deserves a little bit of credit because she puts up with all this is Mrs. Claus.
Oh man, you're right about that.
Do you know that she actually has a first name? There's a debate about her first name. In 1849, a guy named James Reese wrote a book called Mysteries of City Life, and in it, he identified Mrs. Claus's first name as Gertrude. Gertrude Claus.
Did not know that. I did not know that.
But since then, it's sort of been updated, and a lot of people nowadays think her first name is Jessica.
That's from the Rankin and Bass show, TV show from the 60s.
Oh, okay.
Her name was Jessica.
Jessica Claus?
Yeah. She was like a young woman, and it was remember the Santa Claus is Coming to Town?
No, I didn't realize her name was Jessica.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's also a little bit of debate about whether or not Santa Claus had any children. Now, in most paintings and stories, you never hear of him having children of his own, but apparently in there was a musical, and it was a burlesque musical in 1892, and they had a daughter named Kitty Claus, but that didn't really take off.
No, you can't do that.
A burlesque Christmas musical featuring Kitty Claus. Now, of course, you can name the 8 reindeer, right?
Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donder. Is it Donder or Donner? And Blitzen.
Yep, it is Dunder.
Dunder
or Donder. Either one is pronounced, and that actually is New York Dutch colloquial for thunder. And
I think in the song it's Donner.
Yeah, but the Donder, Donner, and Blitzen are
Thunder and Mifflin.
Thunder, Lightning. Yes, Thunder, Mifflin, and Paper. Yeah, so there was a story.
Oh, Dunder and Blitzen is Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah, in Dutch.
Oh, cool.
There was a story in 1902 called "The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus," and those reindeer had totally different names. His 2 principal reindeer were actually Flossie and Glossy.
You see how if you just change something, how dumb it becomes. Like that wouldn't have taken off.
I kind of like Flossie and Glossy. Those could be like the dental. They bring you toothbrushes, right? There was also Racer and Pacer, Reckless and Speckless, Fearless and Peerless, and Ready and Steady. They all had a pair. There were 10 of them.
And this is according to who?
According to this book, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, written in 1902 by Frank Baum.
But that Frank Baum of Wizard of Oz fame?
Maybe.
Wow.
Maybe.
Yeah, he wrote The Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
So that never took off.
I guess not. I mean, I'd never heard of it until now.
And then Rudolph was just from the song written in the 60s.
Well, what I had heard actually was that it was from a poem, a verse written for the Montgomery Ward's department store in 1939, and then it was published as a book later. But it was actually a advertising thing for Montgomery Ward's.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how that.
Gene Autry. What year did he record that song?
Oh man,
I thought it was the 60s.
Was that rock and roll?
But, probably not.
Yeah.
What about Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree? Is that rock and roll?
Yeah. I think it was. It was 50 years ago, a modern take on A Christmas Carol.
If you want to know more about what Kelly and I think are rock and roll,
check out that episode.
Check out the rock and roll episodes.
So Kris Kringle, Santa Claus, Papa Frost, Papa Noel, Father Christmas, all that stuff.
Chimney John.
He was an interesting character, as you could tell from all this. But the original St. Nicholas, I think, deserves a little bit of credit for all those miracles, for slapping down Arius, for defying the haters out there and the doubters of Christianity. I'm not necessarily promoting or demoting Christianity. I'm just saying he stood up for what he believed in, and I respect that. What a guy.
Yeah. Let's pour out one for Kris Kringle.
And if you enjoy these types of shows, be sure that you have subscribed and hit the little button up there in whatever podcast platform you use. Now, this is our last episode of 2023, but we got some big things coming in 2024. Alex, you want to make the announcement?
This is the end of season 2, you're saying?
End of season 2, if you can believe it.
Season 3 starts out, and we will have a video option. We're going to have some YouTube shorts or snippets, and you can see what we look like, and you can see us waxing poetically about the different people that we talk about. But we'll still be on whatever platform you're listening now, but you'll just be able to watch us on YouTube also.
We're giving you more options. And don't forget, do something nice this holiday season. Celebrate St. Nicholas, Saint Day, by maybe giving a gift to somebody you normally wouldn't give one to. Alex recently gave me a gift of a book, and I really appreciate that. I've been reading it, and I think of him every time I open it up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Happy December 6th, everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and Happy New Year. We're looking forward to 2024. Goals for 2024 on Dirt Nap City. I think get more emails, more inbound emails. We need more fan mail. So if you want to send us a piece of candy or just leave it in our shoe, we'd be really happy with that.
Marzipan?
Any of the above.
Rotten potato?
Come lick our spoons. All right, man. Good to see you, Alex. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time. Hope you have a very safe holiday and take a little time off, get some rest and relaxation, and come back ready for more episodes in 2024.
All right. Bye.
I would hang up my stocking at Christmas, open my presents and I'd be glad. But the last time I played Father Christmas, I stood outside a department store. A gang of kids came over and mugged me and knocked my reindeer to the floor. He said, Father Christmas, give us some money, don't mess around with those silly toys. We'll beat you up if you don't hand it over. We want your bread, so don't make us annoyed. Give all the toys to the little rich boy.